There's a good understanding that fleets will lead the way in the introduction of electric vehicles. They can do that because they have good understanding of what their use is all about. And that goes to the rent-a-car market as well. And Hertz is really pushing this as a community activity, but as an acceptance of the way to the future. We ventured down to Stanwell Tops, just south of Sydney and a bit north of Wollongong, to drive an example of Hertz's first electric vehicle on their fleet. Hertz is the premium rent-a-car brand within their organisation, so adapting to new technology that is increasingly becoming a part of new vehicles is essential. Other brands within their group include Dollar and Thrifty Rentals. In this first video, we'll look at Hertz's reasons and the structural aspects of taking on this new technology. We started out from Bald Hill Lookout, with a distant view to the Seacliff Bridge on Lawrence Hargrave Drive, which was opened in 2005 and has appeared in a great number of car commercials ever since. Our vehicle was a new Polestar 2, and Damien Shaw, Hertz's General Manager for Australia and New Zealand, came with us to give us the background on their approach. He began by describing what Hertz is doing with their worldwide fleet.
We've got 2 agreements globally. We've got 100,000 Teslas coming, and we've got 65,000 Polestars. They're our primary agreements at the moment, and we're really looking to be the leaders in that EV space. In Australia, we don't really want to talk numbers at this stage, but we plan to be, by the end of the year, the dominant player in the market from a rental perspective.
You must have to set your expectations based on the infrastructure that we've got as well. You can't rush something that would struggle to perform well if we don't have the charging infrastructure.
I think you're right there, David, but the other thing we need to get our heads around pretty quickly is scale and scalability. So around the globe, Hertz are looking at different ratios of charger to car. So as an example, in the US, they're working on a one charging piece of infrastructure to 12 cars. We're working more on a 1 to 5, and we're trying to actually learn, what is the right ratio. The beauty of an electric car for a retail or a private customer is you can charge at home. Our problem is I need to charge in mass. So Sydney Airport's probably the primary one for all rental cars. There's probably about 8,000 cars at Sydney Airport, and they all need 3-phase power for charging. So if we have to plug them all in at once, we've got a problem.
But it does get back to the value of fleets, where the management of that gives you pretty good data. Perhaps the first question is not what is the range, but rather the first question is how will I be using it?
And that's been a big focus for us. I mean, we've been dabbling in FEV and EV over the last sort of couple of years, to be honest. And once we get a customer that's doing a same-day rental or a one-day rental, we get them into an electric vehicle, they don't want to get out of it. It fits their purpose. You're driving it now. It's a great car to drive. And they overcome their anxiety fears. But you're right. It is, what am I using the car for is probably the purpose, yeah.
The average car does about 270 kilometres a week, which is well within the range of this. But it is, though, an expectation when you're using it to top it up, rather than wait till it's on empty.
Well, funny you say that. I borrowed an electric car for 3 months just to get myself quite familiar with the way it operated, and I must admit, a bit like how I drive my fuel car, like a fuel car I drive to quarter full and then fill up. That's just been inbred in my psyche. With the EV, when I first got it, I'd get it home and I'd charge it straight away because I was panicked I'd not have enough energy to get me where I needed to go. Very, very quickly, though, I turned to charging it once a week.
Okay.
And starting to be a bit smarter around how I charge too. So not charging until 9 or 10 o'clock at night because I knew I had ample time for the next morning. and sort of managing the charging ratios. So it'll be interesting to see how people adapt.
Why is Hertz pushing this? Is it to do with a good corporate image, as well as one that you think that people need to come to grips with?
I think it's probably a combination of that. I think we look at what's happening in the manufacturing and area, and we see electric vehicles are coming. We're the end of the supply chain. We don't manufacture anything here anymore. So we can see what's happening in Europe. There's a bit of a difference in Asia. I still think they're hedging their bets around hybrid and hydrogen options, which again is a fantastic transition car for us. But we see EV as the future in mobility, and we have to learn how that works in our particular market, and how you as a consumer that, if you're going to Melbourne for a business trip, I know this car will meet your needs. But if you're coming to Melbourne and going to Adelaide and it's your holiday, we might not be just there yet, unless we can make sure we've got better infrastructure. The most frustrating thing, I think, for any EV user is you get to a charging network and it's broken, or someone's there and they've only just started charging and it sort of interrupts your trip. That's really the bit we're struggling to get our heads around.
In any rent-a-car, you want to be able to present, a quality product. And in some ways, people are now picking electric vehicles because they're sustainable, but that's not the number one. It's the modern features. So one of the nice things and one of the inevitable things you need to do is make sure that you've got the modern features, which inevitably is going to include having an electric vehicle.
Well, we'll certainly have plenty of electric vehicles for people to drive towards the end of the year, I can promise you that. I think it goes back to your point. It's what you're using the car for. And actually, if you are planning for a longer leisure trip, as an example, you have to be better planned with an electric vehicle at the moment. But I'm hoping in the not too distant future, you don't have to plan to that degree, because the infrastructure network will be significantly better. Hope is not a great strategy though. So I'm not sure how that's going to play out. And I think the more we can get the voice out that it's not the supply chain, although that is difficult at the moment, it's not the supply chain of the car that's going to be our problem. It's going to be the infrastructure to support it. But look, we're pretty we're okay at managing fleets. We manage thousands and thousands of cars, and we're used to how that works. We've just got to be able to get around in our own minds, instead of a 5-minute refill at a pump, we're now talking 45 minutes at best with a fast charger, 4.5 hours with a 22 kilowatt charger, and then if we have to plug it into a standard socket, it can be 17 to 25 hours depending on the charge level. So we've got to adapt. I don't think the pattern of people use, like for us, if I just talk with a really broad brush, people pick up in the morning and return them at night. That's sort of the pattern. And so we do have that opportunity overnight to charge and prepare. It's just that how are we going to go? It's going to be all right when we're 5%. It'll probably be okay when it's 10% of our fleet. But when it's 50, then we're going to start having some operational issues just in the dealings of time. And again, I'll go back to the hope strategy. The way technology is speeding up, we're hoping that the battery charge, the units that are coming out to actually help us in that area, will just continue to improve. It's going to be an exciting change, actually.
The word is adaptable, really, isn't it? We've made the mistake in transport planning of trying to predict the future exactly, rather than being able to adapt to it as it comes and make the decisions as we go. Not to be slack and wait for something catastrophic, but to move ahead but be adaptable if things change. Is that a fair reflection of running a good business?
That's a great reflection. We often talk about the ability to be agile, and I think EVs in some ways are coming faster than we expected. Oh. So, we've been quite surprised at the speed and the variety of models and brands that are entering the market. So we have to be agile as well. So we've got a massive program around where we want to be come December 22. and then we've got a plan that will hopefully see us quadruple that in reality by the end of 23. But for us, it's like, do I have 5 cars here because I've got one charging network? That's fine for spread, but what I really want as an operator is I need to have 1,000 cars at Sydney Airport, and then how do I manage that, and then what's the future look like? And that's where we keep hitting the infrastructure hurdle at the moment.
Are the customers asking for it?
It's interesting that, we have been dabbling. There's quite a lot of what I might put into the tech or EV groupie scene, if that's a polite term. But they're really interested in that technology and that information. They come in, they know more about the car than we do. They're extremely well planned. They know exactly what they want to do. But they're not really our mass market. Our mass market is getting into our everyday traveller who's not that way inclined, and that's a challenge at the minute. But I can promise you, the people, as soon as we get them in it, they don't want to get out. So It's really the challenges for us is how do we encourage them to get in it, and how do we encourage them to understand what they're using the car for versus, anxiety range and so forth.
Hertz is pushing forward strongly with electric vehicles and the specific challenges of adapting to the new technology. In a future video, we will look at how Hertz is addressing the needs of those customers who are coping with an electric vehicle, particularly for the first time.